So Danielle Collier, you are a Gemini like me. So we were both born in June. You a little bit after me. Where and when were you born?
June 5th, Sacramento.
And you have a lot of siblings. How many?
9. Yeah.
And you're the baby.
I am.
What I always wonder, because I only had a brother, I always wonder about the mechanics of feeding 10 people. The parents have to be so organized, and you had a single mom. How is the feeding, the clothing, the getting to school and lessons and sports events? You have to be like a super genius organizer, manager, mama.
So me and my siblings, a lot of us have a big age gap, right? So my eldest sibling is in his 40s right now. I'm in my 20s. So by the time I was, in school, and there was some siblings already moved out, grown and out of the house. But when I was coming up, it was 5 to 6 of us still in the house. So that's what was on her plate. Not that 5 or 6 is easy, but less than 10.
And then how does one do that? I mean, did you have like chores assigned to you? Did you eat? Just the cooking. How did she do that? Organize that, your mother?
Hmm. Well, a lot of it was like, school and stuff. School is gonna do your first two meals. Then when you come home, oh, and chores. Yeah, our chore schedule wouldn't be like, you switch off every day. She didn't have the time to argue with who was doing the dishes and like. No, we stuck with our chores every 3 months. So you knew you were doing the kitchen because you were doing it for the last 2 months. So keep keep doing it. Then we switch after every 3 months. Yeah, she is a superwoman. I don't know how she kept saying with so many children, but she did.
And did she start out wanting to have that many children? Was that like a goal for her?
She says she always wanted 10. Yes, she wanted 10 children. So she went and did what she set her heart out to do.
And how many children were there in her family?
She's one of 9.
Oh, so she was doing what she knew. Um, Sometimes the youngest gets kind of protected, taken care of, not encouraged to do things on their own. What did you find the effect on you of being the youngest of so many siblings?
Well, my mom was about 41 when she had me. So it was a lot of stepping in by other family members who stepped in and like helped out to take care of me, because by the time she had me as a working single mom, she was working and had my elder siblings to take care of. So our family helped out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I was definitely more independent. Still am pretty independent.
Mm. So that was your aunts and uncles that stepped in to help care for you?
I have my God family. I've had other families step in and just sort of um, take that role. So I say now, like I have a lot of families. I've been blessed with so many different families because I've been cared for and loved by so many different people.
Hmm. And what did you learn about being what was it, how was it defined to be a good woman? What did you learn from your family, school, church, peers, whatever? This is how we want you to become.
My definition of being a good woman. I think the definition that I've stuck with is more so the definition of being a good woman that I found in adulthood. Because the world can sort of shape you to be however they want you to be, right? My definition of being a good woman and when I've been most happy and grounded is when I decided to live by my own beat. And I set the standard for myself, which means prioritizing my boundaries, um, my happiness, and as long as it doesn't step on the toes or go in the lanes of anyone else, of course. When you live for yourself, and when your priority is seeing yourself smile, I think everything else sort of falls into place, and the right people who are meant to be there stick around, and those who aren't fall off, and it's all love. But I think being a good woman is being a good woman to yourself, and listening to your own needs.
You were really a self-starter. It says on your bio on your website that when you were 6, you did Google searches for talent shows so that you could sing in public. I mean, 6 is pretty young to be doing Google searches and starting your career. So you were a self-starter.
Yeah, I had to be. My mom had other children to involve with, and my older brothers did sports, and my sisters, I don't think that they did modeling in their younger years, but my mom was real busy with my older brother, so it was like I seen how much she had on her plate, so I always knew, and she knew as well, that singing was my calling. And so I would get on any computer, search up auditions or talent shows, school talent shows, catch a bus, catch a light rail, walk a little bit.
And that meant you were a good reader at age 6, that you could read on Google.
I think when at 6, I was more so doing school talent shows. I want to say I was 11 when I was going to like citywide talent shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 11.
If someone wants to hear your music, could you play something that you'd like us to kind of introduce us to your form of art?
Of course. So what my latest release now is Be Weird, and it's all about individuality, and it's all about allowing people to fall back if they want to fall back, or be in your life if they want to be in your life. It's about not forcing anything and allowing things to gravitate towards you. My music can be found on all streaming platforms: Apple Music, Tidal, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon, everywhere. And it's under the name D Sings, D.Cings. And I can play a little bit now.
I'd like that.
Let me see if I can skip to the part where Be weird if you want. I know trust, I know love, I know what it means. Define it for yourself, and it'll save you some peace. I know trust, I know love, I know what it means. Define it for yourself, and it'll save you some peace. So be weird.
Great. So what is your website, so if people want to check out what you do?
DCINGS.com. Okay. And that'll have my YouTube link, that'll have my social media, that'll have merchandise, all of that.
In your bio, you say the artist is her own writer, vocalist, clothing design, producer, manager, not only a person but a brand. You represent individuality, authenticity, standing out, serving your purpose, not people. What do you do in terms of clothing design? The T-shirts that you sell?
Yes. So I had to, because I didn't want a logo that was simple, I would say. And I wanted to design it myself, because I knew if I had someone else design it, I'd be like, can you tweak that? Can you move that? What about that in gray? Okay, what about in pink? And I just that too much. So I had to learn how to work. Well, first I had to get a MacBook laptop, and I was blessed to have a sponsor support me getting a MacBook, and I had to learn how to create logos. And so that was a new trade for me and learn how to do Photoshop and editing and all that. And so once I got the logo to look how I wanted it, I took it to someone who makes shirts, and I was like, this is what I want. And they're like, that's too complicated. And they're like that's about 20 layers on top of one layer. It won't necessarily come out if we cut it, and we can't press it and print it the way that you would want it. They're like, maybe if you made it flat, then we could do it, but layered like that, we can't do that. Like, it's not possible. So then I reached out to a friend whose mom makes clothes, and I was like, okay, how can I get this here? And this was the most stressful part of the project. It was the worst. I was like, I just sing. Like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, this is not what I wanted to do. But it took so much trial and error, trying different heat press on papers and different fabrics and wasting shirts and buying materials and going through printers and going through the papers and getting the heat press machine. And thankfully I was donated the materials to like have the heat press and the Cricut machine, and so I was trying different things on that and watching YouTube videos, and I finally got it. And I was like, okay, this is the shirt that I want. And then at that time I was like, I don't even want to sell these. I worked so hard on it. Like, I want these for myself. But then after that, I had to learn how to put it on my website. So I had to start playing with website design and learn how to sell merchandise and get the appropriate licensing to sell. And once I got it up on the website, then I had to type a description and so forth and upload it and then post it and then advertise it on my social media and carry all that to every performance and set it up in table and then go on stage to perform.
Do you have a t-shirt nearby you can show us?
Yes, I do. Here, let me get it for you.
Thanks.
So all of my merchandise, I wanted it to be, and then of course the artist in me is sort of picky, so I didn't want to do all colors of shirts. I wanted all my shirts to be earth tone because I love nature. I'm a nature girl, so I only want to do earth tone pastel kind of shirts. So I have two colors left. I have this, I don't know if you can see that. It's like a real pastel yellow, and let me get real close so you can see the design. The design is probably inverted, but it's these things, but it's each letter is symbolized something else. This moon is the C, a tree is the I, the N is headphones, the G is the G from the Google logo, and the S is like the swirl that's on barred gates in low-income communities. And it's just very layered, very colored, a lot of different colors on here, but it's very earthy. So I have the yellow one in this sort of like a brown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like a rustic brown tone.
Neat. Then what led you to just congratulations, graduate from Chico State and major in music production? Why Chico State?
I initially wanted to go to New York, interesting enough. But once I got the financial aid packages back from all the schools, and I got to realistically sit down and look at the cost of education, Chico State, I didn't realize that at the time, part of me was going to be such a blessing and just the experience, but Chico State was the most affordable. And it was far enough from home, but close enough to home, you know? So I chose Chico blindly based on finances, and it ended up being the best thing for me.
Because they have a real technical music production, hands-on kind of music major.
Yeah.
What is it called?
They have a soda productions team. I'm a music major with a focus in vocal instruction. So I focus on singing and the anatomy of the voice. But Chico State does have a great production team that helps with music and performing and advertising their artists and just really putting people out there.
I interviewed a young woman from Oakland, a black woman who left Chico State because she said she would do things like get on the elevator and white students would walk out. and it's a pretty white campus, less so than it used to be. I wondered what kind of challenges that's presented and how you deal with that kind of prejudice.
I think I noticed it more. I think, yeah, I think I noticed it more in my earlier years here, because I came from a predominant Black neighborhood and high school. So I was used to mannerisms, customs, body language of other Black people. So coming to Chico, I heard more stories and had more friends who experienced prejudice and tragedies out here in regards to race, especially after the Paradise Fire. As far as me, from my experience, and the predominant white major, because Chico State is no longer a predominant white campus, as a predominant white, or as one of the only Black students in a predominant white major, it did start out hard, not knowing how to network, and if no one was speaking to me, I wasn't speaking to them, so it did start out hard. But sort of as my music got around and spoke for itself, that opened up a lot of people to wanting to be friends and wanting to be social. And I'm still more so to myself. I'm pretty quiet. Go to class, sit in the front, be the first out the door.
What did you notice in terms of definitions of women's strength in growing up in a Black community and then going to college with a lot of white people? Were there any ways that women were viewed differently in terms of what we aspire to?
I think I've never actually thought about that. That's an interesting comparison to make. Within a Black community, just the one that I was raised in, specifically Oak Park, women are very independent and very self-reliant. So the moms would cook dinner and pick the weeds and mow the lawn and wash the car and take the kids to school, put a Band-Aid on the wounds, get the aloe vera, and jump someone's car. Like the women were praised or sort of expected to be independent and almost an unrealistic standard, to an unhealthy standard, to just always be okay. That's typically the stigma Black women have to live up to always be okay. I think out here I'd surrounded myself with other strong Black women, so I don't really know what other people were praising themselves to do, because I've been surrounded by a strong group of Black women who they work hard, but in a different way. Like they more so encourage me to use my mind, as opposed to like picking weeds and having yard sales to generate income. They encourage me to challenge myself and to use my mind, and value that just as much as I value the work that I do with my hands. And that has been helpful as well.
Mm-hmm. Did you take any women's studies, gender studies, ethnic studies courses?
I did. I was in a women in religion class, multicultural studies class, a few of those courses, and now I've added a double minor in women's studies and multicultural studies. So I'll be diving deeper into that.
But that's when you go to New York, right? Right. So do you think of yourself as a feminist?
More so a womanist.
Like Alice Walker's term.
Correct.
And what's the difference between a womanist and a feminist?
Alice Walker's quote is, a womanist is to feminist as purple is to lavender. So they support the same things. The first wave feminist movement focused on women's rights, but didn't stick it through enough to make sure that all women's rights were met. As opposed to second wave and third wave feminism that focused on the rights for underprivileged communities and women that weren't spoke up for. So minorities, lower class, people of color. The second wave feminist movement, womanism, focused on the rights for those groups.
That's third wave with intersectionality and Crenshaw's intersectionality. I think the second wave got criticized for being white privileged women, and then the third wave said, no, we're not going to just feature white women. We're talking about how it's not just gender, it's our ethnicity, it's our religion, it's our ethnicity, it's our class, it's our nationality, and so that really was a key point. And then people say fourth wave is really influenced by media, internet, blogs, that kind of thing. Some people don't like the idea of waves because it makes it seem like a problem is over, like women got the vote in the first wave, but to me it's useful because there are chronological emphases in terms of struggle for women's rights. So do you see yourself as part of a certain wave?
No, I can't say I haven't studied fourth wave feminism enough to speak for that. But yeah, the one that I studied most passionately is third wave feminism, focusing on being aware of all your intersections, and or just everyone more so being aware of their intersections, because that also makes some people aware of their privilege and others aware of what they're, I hate to say, combating.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because we tend to think of history as moving towards progress, but then that's not true because we had Trump and all the sexism, and now all the rollback and reproductive rights and access to your own women's own body. These white male legislators saying that at the moment of conception we have control over your body. So it's not an upward movement.
Yeah, it's definitely not an upward movement. It definitely has its dips, for sure.
Right. What leads you to New York? You're going to go to school there and do women's studies, gender studies. Where and why New York?
New York has really always been in the cards for me. I'll be in Long Island, New York, studying there, and it has always been in the cards. I was saying earlier when I first was deciding to go to college, I was so certain I was going to New York before I seen how much New York costs. And so I had gone around to different people, my family, and we all just prayed and tried to figure out why we were all seeing signs of New York so much, but nothing with New York was adding up. And so I actually just read it in one of my old journals from 2017 that one of my aunts said, maybe God is showing you New York, but the time isn't now. And when the time comes, you'll know to pack up and go. And so when this opportunity presented itself, being accepted to such a prestigious school and the resources, aligning and people just being willing to help, and me being willing to apply for scholarships like crazy and grants like crazy, and I was like, okay, well, ready or not, the time is now. And so I decided to put all my faith, I decided to ride on faith and put all my faith in God and allow myself to walk by faith and not by sight and not by fear.
And what college are you going to?
I'll be going to Stony Brook.
Oh, New York, NYU Stony Brook.
Yes.
And then so these are undergraduate courses. It's not a master's.
No.
And then what will you do with it? Where are you headed with these courses?
Where am I headed with these courses? You mean like what do I want to do with my degree?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's more of experience. There is no set job or career. There is no job that I want with this. I value the wisdom that I've got from the wisdom and the networking and the experience that I've gotten. There is no job that I'm going to apply for. I don't believe in creating a plan B for yourself. I will be a world-renowned musician, singer, performer, and I don't believe in creating a plan B, something for me to fall back on, because I'm going to go full force for my plan A, and that's where I'll end up. So it's for the experience, and it helps my music when I'm more educated about what I'm talking about, and my experience in just conversation with people. It helps when I know what I'm talking about and can connect with people. The passion from my music definitely comes from connection.
Um, when you look at next semester, do you know what courses you're going to take? I'm interested in like the titles, what the subject matter will be.
I do have it down. I have my courses selected already. I can't remember them now. They're all in that portal online. But I know they're all women's classes because I've taken every music class, and then I do have one class that intersects with femininity and music, and so I'm excited about that course as well. But they're all women in culture classes.
Interesting. How do you? What's your next step in getting your music out? I mean, are there New York venues, organizations that you want to connect with in terms of your music?
Absolutely. And that's sort of where I am now. My break from classes means that I have more time to put into my career. So I'm still working three jobs at the moment. I'm sorry, can you see me?
No.
Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still working 3 jobs at the moment, and so my free time from not having homework, that help I use that time to send my music out to different radio stations in New York, and find the different hosts of each radio show and connect with them and let them know that I'm going to be moving nearby and would like to get in contact or perform at some venues, and I send my performances and I send my songs. And I'm doing that now, but before I touch ground there. So even if they don't respond, you're like, have not heard of you somewhere? Yeah, just to put it out.
Do you have another song you could share with us now?
Ooh, I do.
I like the background of famous singers behind you on the wall.
Oh, thank you. It's definitely inspiration for myself. I have that, and I have my DC at the top. So they're like the foundation of my art.
Could you say a little bit about the song you're going to share?
Yeah, so this song 2020 was released June of 2020, and I made it right after the murder of George Floyd. I was feeling really heavy. The whole I think the world was heavy, but in particular the Black community, we had never, I mean, of course we've seen something like that before, but seeing it in present times while going through a pandemic, it was a lot. It was a lot for us. And so I was feeling really heavy and down. I didn't know how to express myself. And a good friend of mine was like, well, art helps for you. And I was like, no, not this. This is too deep. So I went and I sat in front of, I went to the studio, and I was like, I don't have anything. I don't have any words. I don't have any music. Can we just start? He was like, okay. He starts tapping around on the piano, and here's 2020. I wish I could share my screen and play the video too, but it won't let me do that. Oh, it will let me share screen. I think if I share my screen, it'll connect the audio.
Try.
Let's see.
Nothing so far.
Okay. I got it up now. Can you see my screen?
I just see you. Oh, now, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Can you hear it?
No, we see Trump, but we don't hear anything.
I think doing this will connect my sound and we'll actually be able to do it. Oh no, it won't let me do it with sound. That sucks. Come on, Skype is 2022. I can play it, just the audio for you.
Okay. Danielle, move. You're way over to your left. Just, yeah.
Gotcha.
Can't breathe, we can't breathe. Take a knee, take a knee, take a knee. You're only mad at the Black Lives Matter movement because it's moving. Will no longer live translucent here to stay and not moving 400 years oppression. And they hated that we happy black. Our hair, our nose, our lips, our skin, our smile. But let it comply and you won't die. It's all so simple. Listen, if your skin is black and it stays like that, it's 2.5 strikes against us. It's too much. Where is my wallet? My diablo. I gotta cash a check. Girl, stop it. You're on small. I'll just go for a drive. Corey Jones. What if I miss a stop sign? Sandra Bland. Okay, I'll just walk to the store. Mike Brown. For snacks and nothing more. Trayvon Martin. I'll jog, so I'll make it quick. Ahmaud Arbery. I got cell phone if it looks suspicious. Stephon Clark. Okay, I'll just run home so I won't be out alone. No running, Walter Scott. Then I'll get strapped to carry my own. Philando Castile. I got a question now, cause this just sounds wrong. No question asking Randy Evans. Then I'll go to sleep. Breonna Taylor. It's our children, it's our mothers, it's our sisters, and our brothers, and you wonder why we're mad. It's our children, it's our mothers, it's our sisters, and our brothers, and you wonder why we're mad. We're forgotten, we're tormented, we're abandoned and heartbroken, and you wonder why we're sad. So, take a day and put yourself in my shoes. Take a day, I wonder how would you do. Take a day and take the weight of being black off my back. It's a privilege. Tastes like that. Take a day and put yourself in my shoes. Take a day, I wonder how would you do. Take a day and take the weight of being black off my back. It tastes like that. Take a day and put yourself in my shoes. Lace them up tight. Be careful because they're big boots. Laces of thorn. Holes at the bottom. No comfort inside. What happened? Why you not smiling? I said we can't breathe, we can't breathe, we can't breathe. We can't breathe, we can't breathe, we can't breathe. Take that knee, take that knee, take that knee.
Thank you. Powerful.
Thank you.
Is that why some people called you the voice of Black Lives Matter in Sacramento?
That's the song right there.
Yeah. What's going on with Black Lives Matter? People say that it's interesting because it's led by women, black women, a lot of queer women. It's different than civil rights in the 50s in terms of the leadership. What do you see happening in 2022?
I think times have changed, and so the leaders are going to look different, or and I don't think their sexual orientation or identity matters. I think the problem is the police brutality. The problem is the discrimination. So no matter who spearheads it or who's holding up the signs, the poster boards, who's organizing the march, the problem is still here. The solutions are still far fetched. The solutions are still dangling over our heads.
If you had great power and became, the queen of the U.S., what would you do so that people feel like they're safe in their neighborhoods, but cops don't go out of bounds?
What realistic change could be implemented? Is that what you're...
Sure, that's a good...
I think realistic, measurable change could start with cultural competence training for officers. There is a gap between black people, what we think we know about white people, and white people and what they think they know about black people. I think the gray area, and not that either feelings aren't valid, especially I'm not an advocate for, I can't speak for all black people, because definitely all feelings are valid. But I think what could help is cultural competence training and teaching these officers that get in the field and put themselves in, or get around low-income communities and get around black people, and all they know is that black people in the movies are criminals, and they have this stigma, and so they're already afraid, and there's so many lives lost. There's so many murders because officers were afraid for their lives when there was no threat, no weapon. That fear comes from a stigma. That fear comes from racism. And so teaching and breaking that barrier to where there can be communication, and sending these officers to maybe volunteer in these communities without a holster and get to know these people and get to see that these are still humans, not something to slaughter. That could help.
And what's so interesting is the southern states are really cramping down on what they call critical race theory that does just that says we have to look at our history, the facts, the reality. Hello, this is reality. But they're pulling back on that on states like Florida. So we're going the opposite again in terms of cultural competency.
I think with how public everything is in the media nowadays, and how I think nowadays with how public everything is, you have to choose to be ignorant, because now every group can advocate for themselves using social media and podcasts and the internet, and so there's not just one newspaper that's making a group look a certain way. You have to choose to be, for the most part, you're choosing to be ignorant when you can go and educate yourself on these communities by following a page, subscribing to a channel. So there's never been an excuse, but there's really no excuse for it now. I think times are getting better.
We just had a case that I don't know very much about, where a vice principal at an elementary school called Rosedale was suspended because she did too much for teaching kids about equality issues and racism and whatever. So it always seems like it's 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards. I don't know.
Yeah.
In going back to New York, will you live? Do you know where you're going to live?
No. Going by faith. No.
Are you going to look like for a room in a shared house or kind of a deal, so it's affordable?
Mm-hmm. Definitely looking at those options.
Uh-huh. How far is Long Island from Manhattan?
1 hour.
Oh, because I interviewed a couple of young women who live in Manhattan, and they might know of places, but that's an hour away is too much. What's to return to young people, college students? There's a kind of a crisis, not just for college students, but kids of really young ages in terms of anxiety, depression. Suicide rate has gone up. And I wondered, as an observer and of your peers, what do you see as to what's the cause of this crisis of mental health for kids of all different backgrounds?
You said, what is the cause? That's a... I don't... Yeah, that's a big question. That's like a medical discovery that hasn't been made yet. I can't say what the cause of depression and anxiety is.
Some people say it's social media, especially for girls, that they feel like they're not living up to the glamorous lives of their peers who go to parties and have certain kind of clothes and whatever, so they feel left out of it and inadequate or something. But I think that could be a part of it, but I don't think it's the main thing. What I think is there's so much pressure on young people today to get AP classes, do well on SATs, get into a good college. No, you're going to graduate with like $35,000 in debt. You got to get a good job, pay for that debt. So harder to get into a good university. It's just, there's just a lot of pressure. Worry about the environment. Our planet's being trashed.
I think our planet's always been being trashed. I don't think depression and anxiety are new. I think we're more, like I was saying, we are talking about more this generation, and we are frontlining things more, because if you listen to some old folks talk about the way that they grew up and how they handled it, addiction was oftentimes how they remedied certain things. And if you listen to it, it sounds like it was depression, but back then, at least for my family, they didn't have the time or space or room to be depressed, because the cows had to be milked, the pigs had to be slopped, the chickens needed to be, like, there was things that needed to get done, and there was no education on how to treat these things, or it being okay to talk about these things. So I don't believe that depression is new. I think we're comfortable talking about it, and that is new.
That's what some people say, like about autism. There's so many more kids on the autism spectrum. Is it because there are more kids, or just because we have a label for it and we know what to look for? Maybe kids have always been on the spectrum and been considered different, or that kind of thing. Another kind of issue, I guess, between black and white is cultural appropriation. And I know a black young woman movie star was angry at one of the Kardashians for doing cornrows and said that was cultural appropriation. And somehow that was a big issue. What do you think that's an issue?
Do I think cultural appropriation is an issue?
Yeah.
It's annoying. I think cultural appropriation is annoying. Is it an issue? I can't say no. Cultural appropriation isn't an issue because someone else is cool with it. I can't speak for the whole Black community, but if a sister says it's an issue, well, it's an issue. Do I take it personal? It's annoying, but it's flattering.
Yeah, it's saying this is very attractive and appealing, and I want to look like that. Yeah. So I was curious about if that's offensive.
So there's different cultural appropriation. Now, Kim Kardashian wearing a braid in her hair is one thing, but there's things like the skin darkening and the box braids and the lip injections, and to where you almost want to recreate all Black features except the Black struggle. Now that's a problem. Everybody want to be down till it's time to get down and put their hands up. Then that's too Black. And so yeah, that cultural appropriation in that sense is a problem. Now, you wearing a braid, wearing a certain brand, that's nothing but flattering. But when you try to overstep or model Black features or the culture and you overstep, then that's a problem, because it's like, hey, just acknowledge and respect and appreciate without imitation. Or without mockery.
Yeah, it's kind of like wearing blackface in the old vaudeville shows that were white performers. Yeah, I get it. In terms of your music field, Black rappers have gotten criticized for misogyny, talking about women as hoes and bitches and that kind of thing. I wonder what's your take on hip hop and rap in terms of how women are portrayed?
I think something very special about me doing live interviews is that I'm so blunt, and so when I'm live is one of the only times where I have to really think before I speak. And this is a very interesting. What is my take on hip hop and rap? Can I ask a more specific question?
Well, in terms of misogyny, of talking about women as hoe and bitches and that kind of thing.
This is a really hard question.
Do you think it's a problem, or do you think it's not a problem?
I think there's a time and a place. I think there's a time and a place. I think knowing the difference between art and culture and how to present yourself to a woman is one thing. I think knowing the difference, but I think there's a time and a place. I think, there are certain artists who can objectify women in their obscene lyrics, and I definitely don't condone any sexual harassment in lyrics. Like, you'll hear lyrics in a rap song like yada yada yada, put something in the drink. You're like, wait a minute, whoa, that's not okay. Like, and so there's a clear line drawn there. And so I don't condone artists that represent that or that will stand for that. But I think within the culture, and so there's a difference in like degrading and art. And so my personal take on that
it's obviously not just black people. It's Eminem and it's the Rolling Stones, that squirrely dog under my thumb. So it's pervasive throughout all of popular music, I think you could say.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's certain artists where I would get where I do get offended by the use, but just hearing bitch or hoe in a song is not gonna target me. I don't feel like a hoe. So.
Do you address kind of sexist issues in your songs? Misogynist problems in your songs?
Misogynist. Have I addressed any misogynist? Any misogyny in my songs? Sorta. I have a song, Go On, where I talk about, and it's not necessarily misogyny, but I sort of talk about how women are expected to live for love, and how we're expected to just desire to be married, and that's set to be our goal. And so my song is like, I don't want that. You can keep it. And so it's like, I'm not looking for that right now. Like, I'm genuinely happy by myself. So I'm like, you could keep the cute shit. You could keep the dates. And I say, I'll pay for my own food. Like, I'm just okay right now. Like, I'm good. I'm in a happy space. And so that sort of addressed the expectations as a woman's part. But I haven't yet made a song about men's expectations for women.
What was I gonna say? That would be interesting to do, and see how your feminism plays, or your womanism plays out with your music. Do you have Go On that you could play for us easily?
I do, but there's cussing in it. Can I play it on? Is that okay if I still play it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Let's hope we don't get a YouTube ad. Let me see. I'm glad I muted it, because we sure did.
I'm gonna follow your love, and you can keep all your fairy tales. Don't care to know you more. Decide somewhere else. I don't want your love. You can keep all your fairy tales. Don't care to know you more. You decide somewhere else. You could keep the cute shit, swim with the days. I've been down this road before, it's so one way. Single don't mean available, it means I'm free. I'm trying to share my mind with you, and you can't feel me. So I don't mind my business, I'm not trying to be shit. I don't mind enough lessons for right now. I'ma do my music and focus on this school shit. Give God the glory and be in my house. I know that pain is the cost of love. Right now I ain't got it on me. You can call it what you want, but it's free to be lonely. So go on, hey, go on. I suggest you go on, hey, go on. 'Cause this ain't what you think you want.
So that is Go On.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a feminist song. But you know what's interesting is every young woman I've interviewed for this feminist activist book says the same thing as you. Marriage is not important to me. I want to develop my career, my interests. It's just not a thing like it used to be.
I desire love, but I wonder how it will fit with my love for art and music. So maybe I'll just have to marry someone who loves the art and music as much as I do.
We'll see. keep
We
it.
shall see.
We shall see. Okay. Is there anything that we've left out that you would like people to know about your music or what's important to you?
I'm excited for everyone who hears this to be a part of the up and coming. A lot of times we see interviews of artists once they're established or after they've crashed or things like that. I'm excited for everyone who has been along this journey with me since I was young and those since I was in grade school and those who have joined on and are by my side in supporting my art and music. And I thank those supporters. I thank the active listeners. I thank the people who put me on their playlist because all my art comes from a genuine and a true place. Aside from it being genuine and true, I don't ever plan on stopping. It's my passion. So it's a good I'm a good investment. And yeah, I just thank everybody who's here now, and we'll compare these interviews to my interviews 5 years down the line, and be able to say, 5, 10, 20 years down the line, and just be able to see the progression. I always emphasize that I'm not promoting perfection, but you can see the growth from my videos from 2012, my videos now. I'm still at it, and I don't plan on stopping.
So again, if someone wants to see you sing and see the videos, they'd go to d.cings and they can get the real thing, better quality than we could do tonight. Is there anything that people can do to help get the word out? What would be most helpful?
Yes, sharing posts, sharing performances when I post them on my Instagram. My Instagram is also D.CINGS. Sharing posts, sharing singing videos, telling a friend, playing it in the car when you're on a road trip. Definitely getting the word out looks like just sharing the music. Because especially on my Instagram, I definitely cater to all different varieties of people.
Great. Thank you.